Ink up. Slow down. Write your rhythm with script and scribe.
Some pen unboxings feel like opening a treasure chest. This one was more like a crime scene investigation. And we start off with it being really, really tricky to get into. I'm Kat. Welcome to my unboxing of this online Newood calligraphy fountain pen gift set in natural Wawa wood. The set usually retails for £74. It's currently on offer at £51.80, and having applied my 20% loyalty discount, I got it for under £42. The outer plastic was a nightmare to get into. I had to resort to a box cutter to actually cut into the seals on the side without cracking a nail or losing patience. And before I even managed that, I could already see through the plastic that the bottle of ink that's included, the brown bottle, had already leaked. Now, once I was finally in there, the presentation box actually impressed me, which is good because, you know, for new pen day, I was not impressed with how difficult it was to get in and seeing that messy bottle of ink. And as you can see, it was also tricky for me to actually push the presentation box out of the clear plastic once I'd even gotten in. Anyway, real wood with a magnetic closure. I do think that the cardboard where the nibs are housed could have been recessed, but I was just impressed with this sort of flap going over. I was like, why is it catching? I hadn't really noticed the magnets at first. It wasn't until I rotated and had a proper look that I could understand how it was feeling so nice and secure. So we'll have a quick look at that. I'll just tilt it so you can see that it closes properly, and it's just two tiny little magnets on the side. So it comes with a brown ink that is 10 mils, but as you can see, I can already tell that I'm going to have an issue with this bottle. It's all over the label, and all around the mouth of the actual bottle is a huge dried ring of ink. Messy, chaotic. Thankfully, I could see there was still enough ink inside the bottle for me to, fill into the pen. So I was looking forward to seeing what sort of brown they provide, but it is so thick. I was like stunned when it was on my finger. I was like, what? It doesn't even have the consistency of ink anymore. It's just like this very sediment heavy texture, sort of muddy. And the seal is there, so that should have done its job, but it didn't. It's cracked. And this very soon became extremely more messy than I was expecting. So, like I say, it's not the sort of experience you want to have for new pen day when you're all excited, and instead you're having to deal with something entirely unexpected and less fun. I didn't have to do a swatch of this ink. I was like looking at my hands and going, oh, okay, there's a hint of like pinkish color in there and a bit of green in there. But the good news is it washes off incredibly well. I thought I was going to have tons of stains, but I was like, okay, well, this is definitely not water or soap resistant. It is so easy to come off. So that was a positive. And once my hands were clean, I started to feel a bit more excited about the pen again. So the pen and extra nibs are clipped to this piece of cardboard. Like I say, I think it should have been a recessed sort of holder, but underneath it we find some plastic. I wasn't sure what to make of it. It's really just some plastic caps, which says that it will keep the nib from drying out when you're not using the pen if you decide not to use the cap. And I'm not sure the point of that. If you know and you use these, let me know the point of them. But we've got them, and then we've also got instructions on how to fill up the pen, which is just really straightforward. You just dip the nib in and twist the converter top to suck up the ink into the converter. Right, so the pen itself looks fantastic capped. The Wawa wood grain is rich and varied. I really enjoy that contrast between the lighter and the darker bits. The silver trim is clean, it's very matte, and the overall effect is elegant. Visually, I think it knows what it's doing. But I started unscrewing it and it's not. I could tell it wasn't a screw cap. So there we go, it's a push cap. It's got a really functional ink converter in there. It sits securely, so I felt, confident about that not spilling over. It's got a good connection, and that's a good thing because you don't want a leaky pen with a wooden pen. You want everything to. That's why another reason that I was so worried about that ink at the start, I was like, you do not want on your first day to have that ink go all over the wood grain. But anyway, this sits really securely, but I wasn't sure about the threads on the actual nib unit section that ties into the main part of the body. It felt a little bit off, and as I unscrewed it again, it feels more like the threads inside the body of the pen are more metal, and I'm not convinced that the threads on that section that screws in is metal. I don't know, I'll have to look it up. But anyway, I also was worried about the grip section. As you can see, I'm looking at that quite a bit because the step down is very abrupt. And thankfully, I've got a callus on my middle finger, so I know that it's going to sit securely and everything, and I'll probably be saved from finding it very uncomfortable. But I reckon that that is not a good design. It just feels not smooth enough. I'd rather have had like an hourglass shape to that grip section. So here you can see that I've got a very developed callus where the section is going to sit on, and I'm hoping that that is really going to cushion the pen or cushion me from the pen as I write with it. But I wouldn't think that this is then a beginner's pen because you'd feel really uncomfortable. We're doing a writing test in this Hobonichi A5 notebook with grid outline, and it's a return of the diabolical ink bottle because we're going to have to ink this up. Sometimes with ink converters, you find that you have to take the converter out of the nib unit and actually stick it directly into the bottle. But this one worked fine, just sticking the nib in and using the converter within it. So that worked well. That's a positive, which is good because I feel like there were so many negatives that I started off with on this. Again, just such a mess. It was so much more messy than I usually am, and that's saying something. This set comes with 3 stubs, 0.8, 1.4, and 1.8. I started with the 1.4 as it was already on the pen. The writing experience, genuinely lovely. This nib is super smooth with gorgeous line variation, which you'd expect from a stub. The downstrokes are thick and dramatic, the side strokes crisp and clear. It's a wet writer, but the ink dries surprisingly quickly, especially on this fountain pen friendly paper. Interestingly, when I hold the pen straight on, the line is wetter and bolder. Tilt it slightly at an angle and becomes a touch more restrained. Writing in reverse, it behaves like a dry medium, which could be useful for fine detail or margin notes. That versatility plus the smooth glide of the nib makes it a joy, at least for short sessions. Now, here is why I think that this is not a great pen for long writing sessions. The balance feels really off. It's almost like this should be a pen that is posted, but unfortunately, you can't post it because of the fancy design. I mean, it's visually really appealing the way that it looks when it's capped, but for a pen that should be posted and then can't, I think that's a real miss here. Something feels off about the whole design, and I think it's about trying to work with the aesthetics. So the design was there before the functionality almost, and that wanting to taper it to the part where you're actually gripping the pen. But it's not actually in practice the best design. So I do think that the design issues all stem from the grip section, which is actually really uncomfortable, even with that callus I was talking about that usually cushions me when I'm writing, because I don't tend to feel the pressure of the pens that I'm holding because it is that thick, but I definitely felt this one, as you can see. Rounding off that step down edge would really help, but I think again it still would be a pen that you need to post to get the balance right. It's a shame because the nib I do like, and I am looking forward to trying the other two. It just works so well. And I love the wood grain. I think ultimately, because of the lovely design of this wood, the grain in it, they might as well have just gone for a traditional shape, something far easier. And by trying to make it look visually even more appealing when it's capped, the design just totally went wrong, especially on that grip section. It really didn't need to be that narrow and that hard of a step down as well. So a bit of a shame, it's a miss, but the nib performs brilliantly. Thanks so much for having joined me and let me know what you think. Let me know as well if you have an online pen and whether your model is far more comfortable and you'd recommend it.